This video is sponsored by SquareSpace. SquareSpace is the all-in-one website platform to help you stand out online, but more on them later. This is my personal Rolex Daytona 116500 LN. I bought this watch back in August 2021, and this is a watch I've had a slightly complicated, weird relationship with. On the one hand, I absolutely love it. This is my grail Rolex, the Rolex I never thought I'd own. I never thought I'd get the call on this. I just thought it was a pipe dream. But on the other hand, with the long waiting lists and the hype around the Daytona, it almost feels like the watch that I shouldn't like. So let's talk about it. What I like, what I don't like, and my complicated relationship with the Rolex Daytona. If you're new here, my name is Brittany, and this channel is basically the place where I've been documenting my watch collecting journey over the last almost 4 years. That's weird to think. Time has gone by very, very fast. But you guys don't care about my YouTube timeline. Let's talk about the Rolex Daytona, baby. Starting with the specifications, so we're all singing off the same hymn sheet, this has an advertised 40mm case diameter, 47.7mm lug-to-lug, and a thickness of 12.2mm. The case material on my specific Daytona is stainless steel, 100 meters of water resistance, screw-down pushers, and the chronograph complication. Now, I say advertised 40mm case because even though Rolex gives those dimensions, it doesn't actually measure out as 40mm. I don't know why they have given a number that is 1mm larger than how it actually measures. Perhaps they think a lot of modern purchasers would shy away from a sub 40mm chronograph, but I don't know. In my personal opinion, which doesn't matter at all, these case proportions are the greatest asset of the Daytona. Looking at the wearability, the Daytona is completely at home on smaller wrists and larger wrists alike. So here it is on my 5.5-inch wrist, which is a smaller sized wrist, versus my husband's 7-inch wrist, which is a more average wrist size. Not that that means anything, darling. It's not just the lug-to-lug and the case diameter affecting the wearing experience, it's also the thickness. The Daytona is the thinnest automatic chronograph I can think of. This isn't just me being dramatic. My husband and I have been flicking through websites trying to find a thinner automatic chronograph, and we can't find one. So the older version, the one I have, measures in at 12.2mm thick, but the modern variation clocks in at 11.9mm. I don't want to harp on too long with this, but I feel like watch thickness and the way it affects the wearing experience is an under-talked about thing. When a watch is that little bit thinner, it feels less tooly and chunky and more elegant and refined. Neither preference is right or wrong. I have thicker watches in my collection and thinner. It just makes a wholly different wearing experience. Now, looking at the design language and the finishing, this watch feels almost elevated sporty, if that makes sense. It doesn't feel like hockey or rugby. It feels like Formula One. I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes perfect sense in my head. But that's not a great measuring rod for what makes sense. There's the shiny, polished center links and polished case, but then the sporty Cerachrome bezel, screw-down crown and pushers, an almost aggressive feeling dial layout with the red Daytona above the 6 o'clock sub-seconds or seconds sub-dial. This is one of the faults a lot of people have with this watch. It's supposed to be a tool watch, so a bit more rugged and built for purpose, but yet it has PCLs and a lot of dressier design elements. I think this is a very black and white way to look at things. I think there's a bit more of a spectrum to what is sporty. You have something like the Explorer 2, which I'd say is the most faithful by-the-book tool watch, with only brush surfaces and no ceramic bezel. In comparison, the Daytona is a lot dressier. But it's still certainly a tool watch. It's just a bit further down the dressy scale of the tool watch spectrum. It has a higher degree of case finishing and feels that little bit more elevated, if that makes sense. The best way to describe it, once again, this is F1, not rugby. But really quick, let's talk about this week's fabulous video sponsor, SquareSpace. If you're doing anything online or in real life, you need a website, even if it's just a little one-pager. And this is what SquareSpace does. They make it easy for you to make a great-looking website in minutes using their professionally curated layouts and personalizing tools. Using their Blueprint AI, you can build a website from the ground up by putting in a few prompt words, choosing a writing style, and bam, done. Yes. And it is still fully customizable if there's anything you want to tailor to make it the perfect reflection of you. We've got this thing called Fluid Engine, which allows you to drag and drop and make your website look exactly how you want it to. Then, when it comes time to launch your website, it is optimized to every device, like phones, computers, big screens, small screens, however people are viewing your website, it's going to look good. Another awesome thing, Squarespace makes it easy for your customers with flexible payment tools, accepting credit cards, PayPal, Apple Pay, and in eligible countries, buy now, pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay. I love working with Squarespace. I've been using their products since before they were a channel sponsor, and I'll be using them long after, but hopefully they want to be a channel sponsor forever. If this sounds great to you, head to squarespace.com/BrittPierce. The link is in my description. Click my link so they know I sent you, and you can save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's awesome. Thank you, Squarespace, for sponsoring this video. And now, Daytona thoughts. I have so many more. So keeping on with the wearing experience, and this is a real staple of the Britt Pierce channel, overthinking bracelets. So as I said, this watch has a 3-link oyster bracelet with polished center links, leading to the clasp, the Rolex Professional clasp with Easy Link 5mm extension. Unbeatable. Honestly, to me, Rolex is undefeated in the bracelet category, especially at the price. A lot of people don't love the bracelet PCLs, and I get it, but I really love the way it makes this watch feel. And honestly, I wear mine a bit rough. You can probably see the scratches and little love marks all over this watch, especially on the clasp, but I kind of love it. The movement is a Rolex movement, so it's nothing to write home about, it's nothing insane, but it's also a great dependable in-house caliber. So my watch is fitted with the 4130 chronograph movement, but the new Daytonas have the updated 4131. I probably should know the difference between these, but I can't see any. Both have 72 hours of power reserve and a precision of -2 + 2 seconds per day. Okay, let's talk about why my relationship with the Daytona is so complicated. The Daytona kind of feels like the watch that I shouldn't love, but I do. A forbidden love. I'm not sure if you guys have any watches like that. On paper, or when you look at it or think about it, you shouldn't love this watch, and yet the heart wants what the heart wants. There's 2 big things that really bug me about this watch. So one is the hype that has led to limited and low availability. And 2, as time goes on, the price. Let's start with the availability. I don't think hype should influence whether you like or dislike a watch. If you love something as an object, who cares if it's popular or not? Watch collectors and enthusiasts always say, buy what you love, but then judge people whose tastes and preferences don't exactly align with the accepted watch enthusiast list of brands. So for me, it's not the hype that's hurt it, but the purchasing experience. I've heard so many horror stories of people going into the authorized dealer and being laughed out, despite being good customers, or being put on 10-year waiting lists. Like, the Daytona is good, but it's not 10-year waiting list good. Another thing I don't like is the price and how quickly it is increasing. I purchased mine in 2021 for £10,500, which made this far and away the most expensive watch I had ever purchased. 3 years later, the stainless steel variant is £13,200, representing a 25.7% retail price increase. 25.7% increase in 3 years is way, way too much. Once again, I genuinely love this watch, but it's getting to a place and to a price where I think it's a bit too punchy. £10,000 to £11,000 is high, but I'd still say worth it. But the current price, which is only going to go up, it hurts. Okay, what other people don't like, but I don't fully agree. There are so many things. I could get into internet fights with people about the Daytona all day. I probably will be fighting people in the comment section of this video. A lot of people comment, what if I need to time something really quickly? I won't have time to unscrew the pushers and then time things exactly. Which is fair, but my reply is always, what are you doing where you need to time things? extremely quickly and accurately, and you would use a wristwatch for this. I'm not trying to be difficult. I am genuinely curious. Another thing people complain about with the Daytona is legibility, and that's fair. It is busier than I prefer, but it's fine. I feel like the Daytona is a very misunderstood watch, and people's negative opinions are usually clouded by hating hype and wanting to be different or wanting to make a watch purchasing choice that feels a little bit more like the enthusiast choice, or just bad purchasing and authorized dealer experiences. It's a lot of subjective feelings rather than objective opinions. But this doesn't make people's opinions any more or less valid. There's that famous Maya Angelou quote, "People will forget what you said, but people will never forget how you made them feel." When authorized dealers make people feel small and beneath owning their Grail watches, it affects the way you perceive the products. But if we put all those feelings to one side and we're being objective, it is hard to argue with the Daytona. I do understand the hype sucks, the way ADs have treated people sucks, and the secondary market prices are laughable. But as a watch, it is freaking great. It's overrated, but not a crap watch. In conclusion, I have such a complicated and weird relationship with my Daytona. It kind of feels like the watch I shouldn't like, but I do. I don't want to be the kind of person who defends Rolex, but I will always be a defender and a lover of the Rolex Daytona. I know a lot of my comment section will be, "The Speedmaster is so much better than the Daytona. Who would buy the Daytona when the Speedmaster exists?" But as someone who owns both, so I have the vintage Speedmaster from my gorgeous friend Owl and a Daytona, they are so different that they almost feel incomparable. I love them both, and I will never have a bad word to say about the Speedmaster. I just don't think it's a good comparison. I won't ever sell this watch. I'll probably pass it along to my son one day if he has a big milestone or life achievement. But until then, I'll probably keep having a complicated relationship with it. Thank you so much for your viewership and watching this video. Thank you Squarespace for sponsoring this video. And also biggest thank you ever to the names on this screen right now, the Pope tier patrons. Thank you all tier patrons. You're gorgeous and fabulous, and you keep the lights on here at Gringa HQ. But biggest thank you, most notable thank you ever to the Pope tier patrons whose names are on this screen. You guys are the best. You've never done anything wrong in your lives ever. All sins have been absolved.